The great hall of the Aethelgard Empire was a place of impossible beauty. The walls were made of pure white crystal, and the floor was so polished that it looked like a frozen lake. High above, the ceiling was made of glass, showing the bright stars of a peaceful galaxy. In the center of this hall sat Queen Valerius. She was tall, elegant, and had skin that glowed like moonlight. Her people, the Ethels, were the masters of beauty and technology. They had lived in peace for 1,000 years. They did not know what war felt like. They did not know what pain looked like. Then, the heavy doors at the end of the hall swung open. A loud, metallic thud echoed through the silent room. Then another. Thud. Thud. Commander Jax walked in. He was a human, but you could barely see the man. He was covered from head to toe in thick, black carbon steel armor. His suit was not beautiful. It was scratched, dented, and covered in the dark dust of 100 different planets. There was dried oil on his joints and burn marks from plasma fire on his chest. Among the glowing, perfect aliens, Jax looked like a monster. He looked like a dark shadow in a room full of light. As he walked, the alien queen's advisors began to whisper. They looked at Jax with disgust. To them, the human looked primitive. They didn't see a hero, they saw a beast who relied on heavy metal to survive. "Stop, human," shouted High Counselor Vale, the Queen's lead advisor. His voice was thin and sharp. "You stand in the presence of the light of Aethelgard. Why do you bring your filth into this holy place? Why do you hide behind that ugly metal shell?" Jax stopped. He did not bow. He stood still, his mechanical breathing making a low hissing sound. "I am here because you asked for a protector," Jax's voice came out through a speaker in his helmet. It was deep and sounded like grinding rocks. The counselor laughed, a cold and mocking sound. "Protector? Look at you. You are so weak that you need 3 inches of steel just to stand up. We have heard stories of humans. You have soft skin. You have fragile bones. You are cowards who hide in metal boxes because you are afraid of a scratch." The other advisors joined in the laughter. They pointed at the dents in Jax's armor. "Is that a coward's shell you are wearing, human? Are you afraid that even the air in this room will hurt you?" Queen Valerius remained silent. She watched Jax with her large, glowing eyes. She felt something the others did not. She felt a strange energy coming from the man, not of fear, but of incredible weight. "Enough," the queen said. Her voice silenced the room instantly. She stood up from her throne and walked down the crystal steps. She stopped just 3 feet away from the dark, dirty human. "Commander Jax," she said softly. "My people believe that your armor is a lie. They believe you hide behind it because you are small and weak. They believe a human cannot survive without a machine." Jax did not move. "My armor has a purpose, my queen." "Prove it," the queen challenged. Her eyes locked onto the black visor of his helmet. "If you want us to trust you with our armies, we must see the soldier. Remove your suit. Show us what a human truly is. Prove to us that you are not hiding weapons, or a coward's heart, under that metal." The room went cold. No human had ever been seen without their suit in this sector. The advisors smirked, thinking Jax would refuse and leave in shame. Instead, Jax let out a long, tired sigh. "As you wish, my queen," Jax said. "But remember, you asked for this." Jax reached up to his neck. He turned a small valve. Pitch. A cloud of hot, pressurized steam exploded from the suit's seals. The sound was like a dying beast. The smell of old grease, salt, and burnt metal filled the clean air of the hall. The advisors stepped back, covering their noses. Jax's hands, still covered in heavy metal gloves, moved to his chest. He began to unlock the primary clamps. Click. Clack. Click, The sound of the heavy locks echoed like gunshots in the silence. The queen did not move. She watched as the plates of the suit began to separate. Jax grabbed the edges of his massive chest plate. He pulled it forward. The metal was so heavy that his muscles, the few parts of his arms that were visible, strained under the weight. With a final, violent pull, the chest plate came free. Clang! The heavy piece of carbon steel hit the crystal floor so hard that cracks spread out like a spiderweb. The entire hull shook. The advisors gasped. The plate weighed more than 3 Aethelgard men combined. The steam cleared. The queen leaned forward, her eyes widening. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't see a small, weak man. Under the armor, through the thin, sweat-soaked fabric of his undersuit, she saw it. A jagged, deep purple line that started at his shoulder and disappeared into his chest. It wasn't a mark of beauty. It was a mark of violence. The queen froze. Her face turned pale. For the first time in her life, she was looking at something her world had tried to forget. She was looking at a wound. And it was only the beginning. The heavy silence in the grand hall was deafening. The sound of the chest plate hitting the floor still echoed in the ears of everyone present. The Aethelgard advisors stared at the cracks in their beautiful crystal floor. They couldn't believe it. That single piece of metal was heavier than an entire suit of their own ceremonial armor. Queen Valerius did not look at the floor. Her eyes were fixed on Jax's chest. The jagged purple scar she saw was not like anything on her world. On Aethelgard, if someone got a scratch, it was healed in seconds by a laser. But this was a permanent mark of pain. What is that? The queen whispered, her voice trembling. Jax didn't answer immediately. He reached for the locks on his right arm. Click. Hiss. The mechanical arm guard fell away. It hit the ground with another bone-shaking thud. Then, he began to peel away the dark, tight fabric of his inner sleeve. When the skin was revealed, a collective gasp went up from the crowd. Jax's right hand was a nightmare of history. His knuckles were thick and crooked, broken and healed a dozen times. But the most shocking part was his fingers. He was missing two. The pinky and the ring finger were gone, leaving only scarred stumps. High Counselor Vale stepped forward, his face twisted in disgust. You are deformed. You are a broken thing. How can a protector be so damaged? My queen, this is an insult. We asked for a warrior, and the humans sent us a man who is falling apart. Jax finally looked up. His eyes were tired, but they had a sharpness that made the counselor freeze. I am not falling apart, Counselor, Jax said, his voice low and steady. I am still standing. That is the difference between your people and mine. When we break, we don't throw ourselves away. We keep going. Jax moved to his left shoulder. This part of the armor was the largest. It was reinforced with extra layers of tungsten. As he unlocked it, the sound of grinding metal filled the room. He groaned with effort, his muscles bulging as he lifted the massive shoulder piece. Help him, the queen commanded her guards. 2 elite Aethelgard guards, tall and strong, stepped forward. They reached out to take the shoulder piece from Jax to help him set it down. But the moment Jax let go, the guards' arms snapped downward. The weight was too much. They stumbled, the heavy metal crashing to the floor and nearly crushing their feet. The audience was in shock. 2 of their strongest guards could barely hold what Jax had been wearing casually on his shoulder for hours. How? The queen asked, stepping even closer. How can you even move under such weight? The gravity of your world must be a prison. Earth isn't a prison, Jax replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. It's a forge. It makes us heavy. It makes us slow. But it makes us hard to kill. He began to unbutton the top of his undersuit, exposing his shoulders and back. The sight was even more terrifying. His left shoulder wasn't just scarred, it was partially made of dull, gray metal. A cybernetic plate had been bolted directly into his bone. Around the metal, the skin was red and irritated. It looked like the machine and the man were in a constant battle for control. "You have metal inside you," the queen asked, her hand hovering near his shoulder, though she was too afraid to touch it. "A gift from a Sharlock beast on the moon of Titan," Jax said. "It bit the original shoulder off. My doctors didn't have a new one, so they gave me a piece of a tank's engine instead." The advisors were silent now. The mockery was gone. They were looking at Jax's body and seeing a map of 100 battles they couldn't even imagine. They saw holes from bullets. They saw long, thin lines from blades. They saw the map of war written in flesh. Jax reached for the final seal, the one around his waist that held the massive leg hydraulics together. "Wait," the queen said, her voice full of sudden realization. "If you take that off, can you even stand? The weight of your own body, without the suit's motors." Jax looked at her and gave a small, grim smile. "It's going to hurt. But you wanted to see the man. Not the machine." He pulled the release lever. K-chunk. The sound was violent. The heavy leg armor fell away, leaving Jax standing in only his thin trousers and a sleeveless shirt. For a second, his knees buckled. His muscles shook violently as the full weight of his Deathworlder biology hit him without the support of the suit. The floor beneath his bare feet groaned. He stood there, panting, his skin covered in sweat, his body a collection of scars, metal plates, and old wounds. He looked like a man who had walked through hell and told the devil to move out of the way. The queen looked at the pile of armor on the floor, a pile of metal that weighed more than a ton. Then she looked at the man who had been carrying it like a second skin. She realized that the armor wasn't protecting Jax from the world. The armor was the only thing keeping Jax's raw, terrifying power contained. "You call us weak because we hide in metal," Jax said, his breath coming in heavy gasps. "But we don't wear this to hide. We wear it so we don't break your floors just by walking." He took one step forward. His bare foot hit the crystal floor with a heavy thump that felt like a heartbeat. The queen looked into his eyes and, for the first time in the history of her empire, she felt true, primal fear. But it wasn't fear of a monster. It was fear of the sheer, unbreakable will of a human. But then, Jax's eyes widened. He looked at the queen's neck, and his expression changed from exhaustion to alarm. "My queen," he whispered, pointing to a small, glowing red dot appearing on her chest. "Get down." The red dot on the queen's chest was small, but it felt like a death sentence. "Get down." Jax's voice didn't sound like a man's anymore. It was a roar, a sound born from 1,000 battlefields. The queen was frozen in fear. Her people had not known war for centuries. She didn't understand what a sniper dot meant. But Jax did. Even without his heavy power armor, Jax moved like a lightning bolt. On Earth, the gravity is 3 times stronger than on Aethelgard. Without the weight of his 1-ton suit, Jax felt like he was flying. He lunged across the floor, his bare feet cracking the crystal tiles with every step. He tackled the queen, throwing his heavy, scarred body over hers just as a beam of red light hissed through the air. ZZZZZT. The energy bolt missed the queen by an inch, hitting her empty throne instead. The golden chair melted into a puddle of liquid metal instantly. The High Counselor screamed, "Assassins! The Shadow Stalkers are here!" Panic broke out. The Queen's guards, in their beautiful and thin armor, scrambled to find the enemy. But the enemy was invisible. The Shadow Stalkers used high-tech cloaking fields. To the aliens, it looked like the air itself was attacking. Jax stood up, shielding the Queen behind him. He was half-naked, sweating, and unarmed. "Stay behind me," Jax growled. "You have no armor, human," the counselor cried out, hiding behind a pillar. "You will be vaporized. Run." Jax didn't run. He closed his eyes for a split second. He wasn't looking with his eyes, he was listening. He was a predator from a death world. He could hear the faint hum of the cloaking device. He could smell the ozone of the assassin's weapon. Suddenly, Jax swung his arm, not the metal one, but his scarred, fleshy right arm. His fist hit empty air, but there was a loud crunch. A cloaked figure suddenly appeared as its disguise failed. It was a lizard-like alien, 6 feet tall, covered in scales. Jax's punch had been so powerful it had shattered the assassin's ribs and broken the cloaking machine. The assassin tried to stab Jax with a glowing energy blade. The queen screamed, "Jax, watch out." Jax didn't dodge. He didn't have time. Instead, he did something that made the queen's heart stop. He reached out and grabbed the energy blade with his bare hand. The smell of burning skin filled the room. The energy blade sizzled against Jax's palm. Any Aethelgardian would have died from the shock of the pain alone. But Jax didn't even flinch. His face was a mask of cold fury. "My skin is thick," Jax hissed at the assassin. "But my will is thicker." With a roar, Jax twisted the assassin's arm until the bone snapped. He then kicked the creature across the room with such force that it smashed through a crystal wall and fell into the abyss outside the palace. Jax stood there, his hands smoking and black from the burn. He looked down at his palm. The energy blade had cut deep, but he simply wiped the blood on his trousers. The queen crawled toward him, her eyes wide with terror and wonder. "Your hand, you are bleeding, you are burning. How are you still standing?" Jax looked at her. For the first time, she saw the map of war in motion. As he moved, she saw how his muscles worked. They weren't smooth like an Aethelgardian's. They were like bundles of steel cables. Every scar on his body, the long ones on his back, the circular ones on his chest, flexed and moved like they were part of his strength. "Humans don't need a suit to be dangerous, my queen," Jax said, his breath heavy but controlled. "The suit is for your protection. Not mine." Suddenly, 3 more red dots appeared on the floor. The assassins weren't done. They were targeting Jax now. "They are locking onto your heat signature," the queen yelled. "The armor. You need the armor." Jax looked at the pile of black metal on the floor. It was 10 feet away. In his current state, without the hydraulic help of the suit, he couldn't put it on fast enough. "I don't need the metal," Jax said. He looked at the queen's advisors, who were shaking in fear. "I need you all to close your eyes." "Why?" the counselor asked. "Because," Jax said, his eyes turning dark as adrenaline flooded his system. "You've never seen a human truly angry. And it's not something you want to remember." One of the invisible assassins fired. Jax didn't move away from the shot. He moved toward it. The bolt hit him in the shoulder, the same shoulder that was already scarred. Jax didn't fall. He didn't even scream. He used the pain to move faster. He became a blur of scars and muscle. He grabbed a heavy metal spear from a fallen guard. In his hands, the spear looked like a toy. He threw it with the force of a cannon. The spear whistled through the air and pinned an invisible assassin to the far wall. The cloaking faded, revealing the dead alien. Jax was now covered in his own blood and the blue blood of his enemies. He looked less like a man and more like a god of war. The queen watched as this fragile human took hit after hit. She saw a plasma bolt graze his ribs, leaving a smoking black mark. She saw a blade cut his thigh. Each time, Jax simply got faster. It was as if his body thrived on the damage. Finally, the room went silent. The last of the assassins lay broken on the floor. Jax stood in the center of the hall. He was panting. Blood was dripping from his knuckles onto the crystal floor. He looked at the queen. Is it over?" she whispered. Jax opened his mouth to speak, but instead, he coughed up a bit of blood. He looked down at his stomach. A long, jagged piece of an assassin's metal blade was sticking out of his side. He had been stabbed during the fight and hadn't even stopped to notice. The Queen gasped and ran to him. "Jax. You're dying." Jax looked at the blade in his side. He gripped the handle with his burnt hand. "Not today," he grunted. With a sickening squelch, Jax pulled the blade out of his own body and threw it on the floor. He didn't fall. He just stood there, holding the wound with one hand. The Queen froze. She realized then that humans weren't just hard to kill. They were a biological impossibility. "Why?" she asked, tears in her eyes. "Why go this far for us?" Jax looked at her, his vision blurring, but his spirit unbroken. "Because we promised." But then, a low, deep vibration started to shake the entire palace. A voice boomed through the speakers, a voice that wasn't alien or human. It was mechanical. "Commander Jax," the voice said. "The Queen was just the bait. We have found your home coordinates. Earth is next." Jax's face went pale. The real war had just begun. The Grand Hall was no longer a place of beauty. It was a crime scene. Blue and red blood stained the white crystal floors. The Queen's doctors, dressed in glowing white robes, rushed toward Jax. They carried advanced medical devices that could heal a broken bone in seconds using light. But when they reached Jax, their devices started beeping frantically. Red lights flashed on their scanners. "Warning! Warning!" the machines chirped. "Unknown biological hazard. Tissue density too high. Immune system is attacking the medical beam." The doctors stepped back in horror. "My Queen," one of them shouted. "We cannot heal him. His body is too aggressive. His blood is full of iron and acids. Our light meds are being rejected like they are a poison." Jax was sitting on the steps of the throne, clutching his side. His face was pale, but he wasn't screaming. He was breathing in a strange, rhythmic way. "Step back," Jax grunted at the alien doctors. "Your magic lights won't work on me. My body doesn't know how to accept help." The Queen knelt beside him, ignoring the blood ruining her royal dress. "Jax, you are losing too much blood. You have a hole in your stomach. If we don't close it, you will die in minutes." Jax looked at her and gave a dry, bloody cough. "Minutes? My Queen, you don't know humans. We are too stubborn to die in minutes." Jax reached into a small pouch on his discarded armor. He pulled out a small, metallic object that looked like a heavy-duty stapler and a bottle of clear liquid. "What is that?" the High Counselor asked, peeking from behind a pillar. "More human technology. This," Jax said, unscrewing the bottle, "is concentrated alcohol. And this," he held up the stapler, "is how a Deathworlder stays together." The room went silent as Jax poured the alcohol directly into his open wound. "Arg!" Jax's roar was so loud it shook the glass ceiling. His muscles tightened so hard they looked like they might snap. Veins popped out on his neck and forehead. The Queen watched in absolute terror as Jax took the metallic stapler, pressed it against his own skin, and, click. He stapled the wound shut. Click. 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 The advisors turned away, some of them even fainting. They had never seen such primitive and brutal medicine. To them, it was torture. To Jax, it was just Tuesday. Once the bleeding stopped, Jax leaned back, his body shaking from the shock. The Queen was trembling. "Why?" she whispered. "Why is your life so hard? Why does your body fight our healing?" Jax took a deep breath. This was the secret the galaxy didn't understand about Earth. "Your world is perfect, my Queen," Jax began, his voice weak but clear. "On Aethelgard, the sun is gentle. Your air is pure. Your gravity is light. When you get a cut, your body says, "Oh, let me fix that perfectly." He pointed to the jagged scars on his arm. But Earth is a monster. Our gravity tries to crush our bones every day. Our air is full of bacteria that want to eat us from the inside. Our sun gives us radiation. From the moment a human baby is born, its body is in a literal war against the planet. The Queen listened, her eyes wide. Because of that, Jax continued, humans evolved a secret. We don't heal like you do. When we get hurt, our body doesn't try to make the skin beautiful again. It doesn't have time for that. Instead, it creates scar tissue. Scar tissue, the Queen repeated. It's a specialized, hardened skin, Jax explained. It's thicker than normal skin. It's tougher. It has no nerves, so it doesn't feel pain. Every scar you see on my body is a piece of natural armor my body built because the world tried to break me. He looked at his burnt hand. You see a wound. I see a fortification. The more you break us, the tougher we get. That is why your medical lights failed. My immune system saw your healing beam as an invader and tried to kill it. The High Counselor stepped forward, his voice trembling. So, you are saying that humans are evolved to be broken? Jax stood up slowly, his legs shaky but holding. No. We are evolved to endure. You think we are strong because of our armor? No. The armor is just to keep us from accidentally breaking your fragile world. The real strength is the man who can staple his own gut and keep fighting. Just then, the palace shook again. A massive holographic screen flickered to life in the center of the hall. It showed a fleet of dark, jagged ships entering the solar system. It wasn't the Aethelgard system. It was a blue and green planet. Earth, the Queen whispered. The mechanical voice from before spoke again, cold and heartless. Commander Jax. Your death world is strong, but it is not empty. We have targeted your civilian cities. Your scar tissue cannot protect 1 billion people from a planetary laser. Surrender, and we may let them live. Jax's face transformed. The exhaustion disappeared. The pain seemed to vanish. A cold, terrifying darkness filled his eyes. He walked toward his pile of heavy armor. Without any help, he started grabbing the pieces. The weight that had crushed the Queen's guards was nothing to him now. He was fueled by a different kind of energy, human rage. My Queen, Jax said, his voice sounding like a death threat. I need your fastest ship. Where are you going? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Jax locked his helmet into place. The blue visor flickered to life. The galaxy thinks we are just monsters in metal boxes, Jax's voice boomed through his suit's speakers. It's time to show them why the monsters stay in the boxes, and what happens when the boxes are opened. The Queen stood tall. She didn't look at Jax with pity anymore. She looked at him with awe. Take my personal cruiser, she commanded. And Jax, bring us back their heads. Jax didn't say a word. He turned and walked toward the hangar, his heavy footsteps sounding like a drum of war. The Queen's personal cruiser, the Star Jewel, was the fastest ship in the Aethelgard fleet. It moved through space like a needle made of light. Inside, the atmosphere was calm and scented like flowers. But on the bridge, the mood was dark. Queen Valerius stood at the giant window, looking into the black void of space. Beside her stood Commander Jax. He was back in his full armor, but it looked different now. He had cleaned the blue alien blood off, but the dents and scratches remained, a permanent record of his survival. We are approaching the Sol system, the ship's computer announced. Jax, the Queen said softly, not looking away from the stars. My people have always lived in peace. We thought war was a math problem, who has the most ships wins. But seeing what you did to your own body just to keep standing. I am starting to realize I don't understand war at all. Jax's helmet turned toward her. War isn't math, my queen. It's a test of who is willing to lose the most before they give up. And humans? We have nothing left to lose but our lives. We've been losing those since we lived in caves. Suddenly, the ship dropped out of light speed. The view outside changed instantly. The queen gasped. Her knees went weak, and she had to grab a railing for support. In front of them was the dark fleet of the Shadow Stalkers. There were thousands of them. Their ships were jagged, black needles that seemed to swallow the light around them. They surrounded Earth like a swarm of hungry insects. "They are too many," the High Counselor whispered, his face turning gray. "Earth is gone. We should turn back. We cannot fight an ocean with a single drop of water." Jax didn't move. He didn't even blink. "Look closer, Counselor." Behind the enemy fleet, a series of massive, dull gray objects began to emerge from the shadow of Earth's moon. They weren't beautiful like the Queen's ship. They weren't sleek like the enemy's. They were giant, rectangular blocks of steel and fire. They looked like floating factories with hundreds of cannons welded to their sides. "What are those?" the Queen asked, her voice trembling. "Those," Jax said, a hint of pride in his raspy voice, "are human dreadnoughts. We don't build ships to look pretty. We build them to be hammers. And the galaxy is the nail." Suddenly, the space between the two fleets exploded in a blinding flash of light. The war had begun. The Queen watched in horror. She had seen clean wars before, long-range lasers and shields. But the humans didn't fight like that. The human ships moved forward, ignoring the enemy's lasers. They let their own armor melt and burn just so they could get close enough to use their primitive, dirty weapons. Huge chunks of metal, solid slugs of tungsten, were fired from the human ships at incredible speeds. They didn't just damage the enemy, they tore through them, leaving jagged holes and screaming metal. "It's suicide," the Queen whispered. "Your ships are falling apart. Look at that one." She pointed to a human ship that was on fire, its engines exploding. But instead of retreating, the ship sped up. It ran directly into a massive enemy carrier, blowing both ships into a million pieces. "They aren't retreating," Jax said. "In the human fleet, there is no such word. We have a saying, the ship is just a bullet. If it doesn't fire, you throw it." The Queen felt a cold shiver run down her spine. This was the Queen's fear. It wasn't fear for her life. It was fear of the human spirit. She realized that humans were the only species in the galaxy that didn't care about their own survival as much as they cared about their victory. "Commander," the ship's pilot shouted. "An enemy boarding craft has attached itself to our hull. They are cutting through." The Queen's guards panicked. They pulled out their elegant light rifles, but their hands were shaking. They knew they couldn't stop the Shadow Stalkers in close combat. Jax stepped forward. He reached for a heavy lever on his chest plate. Clank. His armor hissed. A strange, red glow began to pulse from the joints of his suit. "My Queen, get behind the command chair," Jax ordered. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Your wounds, you just stapled them shut. If you fight like this, you'll rip yourself open." Jax turned his head. Through his visor, the Queen saw his eyes. They were no longer the eyes of a tired man. They were glowing with a terrifying, artificial light. "My suit has an overdrive mode," Jax explained. "It pumps adrenaline and stimulants directly into my veins. It ignores my pain. It forces my muscles to move beyond their limit." "But, that will kill you," the Queen cried. "Once the drug wears off, your heart will stop." "Maybe," Jax said. "But by then, there won't be anyone left to kill me." The airlock door at the end of the bridge exploded. 5 Shadowstalker assassins leapt into the room, their energy blades glowing. They were fast, moving like shadows. Jax didn't wait. He moved so fast the Queen's eyes couldn't follow him. He didn't use a gun. He used his hands. He caught the first assassin in mid-air and slammed its head into the wall with such force that the metal dented. He kicked the second one, sending it flying across the bridge and through a display screen. But as he moved, the Queen saw something horrifying. Because of the overdrive, Jax was moving too hard for his own body to handle. The staples in his side began to pop. Dark red blood began to soak through his suit's inner seals, dripping onto the floor. He was literally tearing himself apart to protect them. Jax grabbed the last two assassins by their throats. He held them up, his suit hissing and smoking from the heat of the overdrive. "You chose the wrong planet," Jax growled. He smashed their heads together and dropped their lifeless bodies. He stood there, swaying, his breathing sounding like a broken machine. The Queen ran to him, catching him before he hit the floor. She held his heavy, armored head in her lap. "Jax! Stop! Turn it off! You've saved us!" Jax's visor was cracked. He looked up at her, his breathing shallow. "Not yet, the flagship, the enemy leader, he's still out there." The Queen looked at the view screen. The enemy flagship was moving toward Earth's atmosphere. It was preparing its planetary laser. In 60 seconds, Earth would be a ball of fire. Jax struggled to stand. He was leaking blood from his side, his arm, and his leg. He looked like a dying giant. "I need to drop," Jax whispered. "Drop? From here?" the Queen asked in shock. They were in high orbit. "You don't even have a parachute. You'll burn up in the atmosphere." Jax looked at his heavy, carbon steel armor. "This isn't just a suit, my Queen. It's a heat shield." He looked at her one last time. For a moment, the cold soldier was gone. "If I don't make it, tell Earth, we held the line." Before the Queen could stop him, Jax punched the manual override for the airlock. The door flew open, and the vacuum of space began to suck the air out. Jax didn't hesitate. He stepped into the void. The Queen watched through the window as a single, tiny black dot fell toward the blue planet, turning into a ball of fire as it hit the atmosphere. As he fell through Earth's atmosphere, his black carbon steel armor turned glowing red. The heat was over 3,000 degrees. Inside the suit, Jax was screaming, but not from fear. He was screaming to stay conscious. His overdrive system was pumping every last drop of adrenaline into his heart. His internal sensors were flashing, critical failure. Organ collapse imminent. "Just one more minute," Jax wheezed, his teeth drawing blood from his own lip. On the enemy flagship, the Shadow King, a massive, multi-eyed creature, looked at his radar. "Something is hitting the hull," he hissed. Before he could react, the ceiling of the bridge exploded. Boom! A ball of fire and black metal crashed through 5 decks of the ship, finally landing right in front of the Shadow King's throne. The impact was so powerful that the entire massive ship tilted. When the smoke cleared, Jax was there. His armor was no longer black, it was a burnt, melting gray. Steam hissed from his joints. He stood up slowly, his movements jerky and painful. One of his leg hydraulics snapped, and he fell to one knee, but he forced himself back up. You are a ghost," the Shadow King whispered in terror. "No biological creature can survive a fall from orbit. You should be dust." Jax reached up and grabbed his helmet. It was fused to his suit from the heat. With a roar of pure agony, he ripped the helmet off with his bare, burnt hands. For the first time, the Queen, watching from her ship's long-range camera, and the Shadow King saw Jax's face. He wasn't an old man. He was young, but his face was a mosaic of war. A deep scar ran from his forehead, across a clouded white eye, down to his jaw. His skin was pale, covered in sweat and grease. But it was his eyes, the one good eye, that made the Shadow King step back. It wasn't the eye of a soldier. It was the eye of a man who had already accepted his death. "I didn't come here to survive," Jax said, his voice a broken whisper. "I came here to make sure you don't." Jax lunged. He didn't use a gun. He grabbed the Shadow King and drove him toward the ship's main power core, a giant sphere of unstable dark energy. The enemy guards fired their lasers at Jax's back. 1, 2, 3 shots hit him. His armor was gone. The lasers burned directly into his flesh. The Queen, watching the screen, screamed, "No. Stop. He's already dead." But Jax didn't stop. He didn't even feel the lasers anymore. His brain had shut down everything except one goal, the core. With his mechanical arm, Jax punched through the glass shielding of the power core. The energy began to leak out, melting his metal arm instantly. "We are both going to die," the Shadow King shrieked, clawing at Jax's face. Jax looked him in the eyes and gave a bloody, terrifying smile. "That's the difference between us. I've been dying since the day I put on the suit. You're just starting." Jax pulled a small, manual detonator from his belt, a simple human grenade. He shoved it into the leaking core. "For Earth," Jax whispered. The aftermath. The explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but it was the most beautiful thing Queen Valerius had ever seen. The enemy flagship turned into a second sun, vaporizing the Shadow King and his fleet. Without their leader, the remaining ships fled into deep space. Earth was safe. 3 days later, the Queen's ship landed in the ruins of a human city. She stepped out, her royal robes dragging in the dust. She was looking for him. She didn't believe he was gone. She found a group of human soldiers sitting near a pile of rubble. In the center was a man wrapped in thick bandages, sitting on a crate. He had no armor. He had no mechanical arm anymore, just a stump. He was breathing through an oxygen mask. It was Jax. The Queen ran to him and fell to her knees. "Jax. You lived. How?" "The ship exploded. You fell from the sky, twice." Jax pulled the mask away and looked at her. He looked even more broken than before. His body was almost entirely covered in bandages and scars. "Humans are hard to kill, my queen," Jax said, his voice barely audible. "I told you. We are made of scar tissue. The explosion threw me into an escape pod. I got lucky." The Queen looked at the human soldiers around him. They were all like him, scarred, bandaged, and tired. But they were all laughing. They were sharing a small bottle of water. They were helping each other stand. The High Counselor, who had followed the Queen, looked around in disgust. "Look at them. They are all deformed. They are all ruined. How can you call this a victory? Your people are broken." The Queen stood up and turned to her counselor. Her face was full of a new kind of power. "They are not broken, you fool," she said. "They are forged. Every scar on this man's body is a story of a time he refused to give up. We live in a galaxy of glass, beautiful, but we shatter the moment we are hit. These humans. They are iron. They are the only ones who can truly protect the light, because they aren't afraid of the dark." The Queen turned back to Jax. She took off her royal golden crown and placed it on the crate beside him. "I came here to see the monster under the armor," she said softly. "But I didn't find a monster. I found the only true king in this galaxy." Jax looked at the crown, then at the Queen. He gave a small nod. "I don't need a crown, my queen. I just need a new suit of armor. There's still a lot of galaxy out there that thinks we're weak." The Queen smiled, a tear falling down her cheek. "Then we shall build it together. And this time, it won't be a coward's shell. It will be a monument to the man who wouldn't die." The final shot, The camera pans out to show the human soldiers and the alien queen standing together among the ruins, looking up at the stars. The message is clear: humanity isn't the most beautiful race, but they are the ones you want standing in front of you when the lights go out. The end.